Hey everyone, this is Doug Kenny and Christina Golias from Relentless and Unstoppable, and today we have the director of Tuck Everlasting with us. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing
Doing
great.
well.
How you doing, Christina?
Doing okay today. Can't complain. Enjoying the nice summer weather we just got here.
Yeah, it's pretty
Where
hot
are you,
here in the
Christina?
desert.
I'm just outside of Los Angeles as well. I'm in Long Beach.
All right, right. So you saw the switch in weather we had today.
Definitely. We've had overcast and gloom. Now we finally have that sunshine that we've, I think, been craving for a while.
That's right.
Definitely, and it's really, really hot, 115 degrees here in Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Jay, where are you originally from?
Well, I grew up in North Little Rock, Arkansas, which is right across the river from Little Rock, Arkansas. It's the capital city there. I spent my youth there, and then after that, moved to Memphis, Tennessee for a couple of years, and then from there to New York City for about 10 years, and then after that to Los Angeles, where I've been ever since. It's going to move out here for a couple of years, and then, like 25 years later, I'm still here.
Nice. So, what made you get into film?
Well, I'd always, the two big interests of mine when I was a kid were music and making movies. And I was one of those kids that, back in the day, you had, Super 8 camera. I'm sure you saw the Spielberg movie last year. I mean, that was kind of me. I had my parents' Super 8 camera, and made little movies, mostly just incredibly gory horror kind of movies, and that was what got me hooked. And and I pursued, like I said, pursued both music and thinking about making movies up until college. And I started out as a music major, and again, I thought that's what it was going to be. I thought I was going to play music. And but along the way, two things happened. First of all, I wasn't sure that I was a good enough player to make a career out of playing music. But then secondly, my love for telling stories sort of took over, and started spending more time in the theater and film department than I was in the music department. And the next thing you know, that's where I just dove in. And then really, once I started with it, I never stopped. When I got out of undergraduate school in Memphis, I, was not quite sure what to do, because I had started late into the film program there at that school. And one of my professors said, well, why don't you consider graduate school and sort of catch up? And I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea if I can get in, because it was really late to apply. And I applied to all the big film schools and everything, and got turned down by all of them, except for one, which I was waitlisted, which was at Columbia University in New York. And I was really passionate about trying to get in there, because one of my film heroes, Milos Forman, who of course had made One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Hair and Amadeus and others, he was the chairman of the department there. So I was hoping upon hope I could get in, but I was waitlisted, and literally about 2 weeks before school started, I got a phone call from the admissions guy there saying, we had someone drop out. It's really late, and we understand, but if you wanted the slot, it's yours. And I said, I'll see you in New York. And without a place to stay or anything, I just moved to New York and started school. And that was a big game changer for me, because then it was two schools in one. It was a great school with Milos, and then it was the School of New York, and that's kind of how it began.
That's amazing. Amazing how you can go from being tiny to getting bigger, because now you're a big name in film.
Well, I never, it's funny, I never really thought about it that way, and still don't. I just, I just loved doing it, and I always hoped I could do it. And there were certainly no guarantees, and it took a lot of hard work to, chip away at it so that I would get to do it on a larger and larger level. Because it certainly didn't start out that way. It started out with, well, the first job I had was shooting parks and tourism commercials for my home state in Arkansas, and then that led to some other things, and I wrote a number of scripts when I was at Columbia, and one of those was accepted to the Sundance Institute Writers Workshop, and that was it was just a matter of different steps, and that was another big step is when Sundance accepted that project, and that got a little attention, which never hurts. And then I was able to get that little micro budget movie made, and then started getting some writing work out here, and it was just step by step by step, and the projects got larger and larger. Although they were all ultimately kind of modest budgeted movies comparatively, but having gone from making some TV documentaries to then, because of one of those TV documentaries, I met the author, Willie Morris, who had written this memoir called My Dog Skip. And it was because I did the TV documentary that I met Willie, and I was able to get the rights to his book. And then that film, which was made again for a relatively very modest budget, and it turned out doing really well, and so that led to further projects, including Tuck, which I guess you wanted to talk about today, which was, I think, the next one after Skip.
That's incredible. Yeah. So how'd you get your role in Tuck Everlasting?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How did you get your role in Tuck Everlasting?
Well, again, Skip was kind of a breakthrough film for me, and it got a lot of attention, and I won some awards for it, and blah blah blah, and which is the kind of thing here that will give you a boost to your career. And so I was getting offered a number of projects at that point, and I had I was looking for that next project that had, which I always look for, or the project that had a really solid theme to it, a very involving theme, and I had trouble finding something. But then Tuck came across my desk. Nina Jacobson, who was running the creative at Disney at that point, had sent it to me, and she was interested in me directing it. And I read the book, and I read the script, and I just fell in love with it. And so that's, and it was interesting, we were talking before we went on the air here, we were talking about the Writers Guild strike. Well, at that point, when Tuck got the green light, there was a potential actors strike coming up. And so really the project, because most projects, they take forever to get made. Well, in this case, the studio wanted to get the project into production in time to be finished before the potential actors strike. So it was actually kind of rushed through, and we weren't even completely finished with the script, which is something you never want to do, is to go into production without a completed script. So it was sort of an all hands on deck situation. And, there were a number of really great writers who sort of jumped in with me, and they all sort of did special things. It's one of the only movies I've made or been a part of where it was almost a collective effort, of a number of writers, as opposed to there just being one writer whose voice is all the way through it. But interestingly, I would challenge anyone to find the separate voices in it. It all came together where it felt like one voice. And that really kind of went back to Natalie's book. Natalie's book was ultimately the voice, and it was everyone translating that and adapting that into something that could be filmed and would exist as its own creature, which is a film as opposed to a book, which are really apples and oranges. They're very two different art forms.
Yeah, for sure. Fire away, Christina.
So Jay, I know you had mentioned that there were many writers that came together for this project to make it happen and really make the book come to life. So would you say that the hopes or the goal for everybody in that collaboration was to just try to captivate everything that the book basically painted for us as a beginning story?
Yes, that was the goal, and yet we knew we had to adapt it, because books aren't movies and movies aren't books, and there were, we wanted to capture the spirit and the theme of the book, and I had a couple of really interesting conversations with the author Natalie Babbitt, who was still alive at that point, and Natalie and I, we had great conversations. They weren't always agreeable because Natalie, this book was very precious to her. It was her big book. She wrote other books, but this was the one. This was what she was known for, and is studied in schools and so forth. So she was very, very cautious about a film being made from the book. And she, when I first sat down with her, one of the first things I said to her is, I said, Natalie, I will say two things to you. First of all, your book's always going to exist. That's never going to go away. And secondly, is a movie cannot be a literal translation of a book. It just doesn't work. People have tried it and it just doesn't work because it's just two different animals. And she, having not experienced filmmaking at all or been involved with it ever before or ever since, that was a foreign idea to her, and so she asked me questions like, why not? Why do you have to change things? And and I think she finally got it, which was, a book, it's words, and the words create mental pictures, whereas in film the pictures are literal. It's literally what you're seeing. And there were certain aspects of her book, because she dealt with a lot with metaphor and analogies and thematic representations that work in literature. But for instance, I'll give you for instance, Winnie in the book is like, this is many years, so forgive me if I don't get the age exactly right. But in the book, she's like 9 years old, and Jesse is like 18 years old. And to have kind of a love story between a 9-year-old and an 18-year-old, and if you make that literal, that's going to be, frankly, kind of creepy,
Yeah.
And so I explained it to her, and I said, also, just to be honest, Natalie, the studio's never going to make that movie because they're not going to make a love story between a 9-year-old and an 18-year-old. And so that was one thing. And then I said, I'm going to try to capture your intent with the man in the yellow suit, for instance, and that was all, the yellow suit was, about cowardice and greed. And that's the color, why she chose the color yellow. And I said, I'm going to do the best I can with that character and bring out what you were writing about. But I said, it's going to be tough because, it's going to be a guy in a yellow suit, and that's going to be literal. It's not going to be as you read through a book. So it was stuff like that of explaining the difference between a book and a film. And I've totally forgotten your question, but that was part of the process of the translation. Oh, I know. And then the group of writers all, with myself, we all tried to work on that so that we could tell the same story, but tell it in a way that we felt would live on film as opposed to a page.